The Grand Council chamber of the Galactic Concordat had never been so silent. 37 species represented, all of them advanced enough to traverse the stars, and not one dared to speak. On the massive holographic display dominating the center of the chamber, another world disappeared into crystalline death. High Chancellor Vexra's iridescent scales dulled to a sickly gray as she watched the crystalline entities consume everything in their path. The defensive platforms, acclaimed as invincible just cycles ago, shattered like glass. The evacuation ships, too few and too late, winked out one by one as the crystal swarm overtook them. That was Colony World Nexus 7. She finally spoke, her voice carrying the weight of billions of lives lost. Our most fortified outpost in the Orion Arm. It fell in less than 6 standard rotations. The silence that followed was deafening. The Concordat had ruled the known galaxy for 10,000 years through technological superiority and diplomatic finesse. Their energy shields could withstand supernovas. Their quantum weaponry could reshape planets. Yet against these crystalline entities, they were helpless. The crystals adapt to everything. Science's director Zhitel added, his 4 arms moving in agitation as he manipulated the holographic controls. Energy weapons are absorbed. Physical projectiles are analyzed and rendered harmless. Even our most advanced nano-countermeasures are integrated into their structure within moments of contact. "How many worlds have we lost?" asked Representative Kuller of the Merchant Worlds, though everyone knew the answer. 47 in the past standard month, Vexra replied. And they're accelerating. The crystal swarms are learning, evolving. Each defeat makes them stronger. From the shadows of the chamber's upper tier, a voice spoke, one that caused several representatives to instinctively move away from its source. "There might be one option we haven't considered," said Scout Commander Rix, her black chitinous form moving forward into the light. The chamber's atmosphere grew tenser. The arachnid scouts were tolerated for their exploration abilities, but never truly trusted. "Speak, Commander." Vexra granted permission, though her scales rippled with unease. "My deep space reconnaissance team discovered something 3 cycles ago. We kept it classified because the implications were too disturbing." Rix's multiple eyes flickered with an emotion rare among her kind. "Fear. We found the Deathworlders." The chamber erupted in shocked whispers. Every spacefaring race knew the legends. Somewhere in the uncharted regions existed a species that evolved on a planet that should have been impossible to inhabit. A world of extreme gravity, deadly radiation, constant tectonic activity, and aggressive predators. Most considered it a myth. "They're real," Rix continued, her voice cutting through the chaos. "They call their world Earth. We classify it as Deathworld Category 13. The fact they survived there is remarkable. The fact they built a civilization there is terrifying." The holographic display shifted, showing a blue-green world wrapped in swirling white clouds. The data scrolling alongside it caused several council members to emit sounds of disbelief. Gravity 1.3 times our standard. Atmospheric pressure that would crush most species. Temperature variations that swing from freezing to boiling. Regular geological upheavals. Over 500 species of macro-predators. And yet, Rix paused, her mandibles clicking. They thrive there. They build cities in deserts, beneath oceans, in frozen wastelands. They survive disasters that would annihilate most civilizations and rebuild stronger than before. These humans, Vexra tested the alien word carefully. They're primitive. By our standards, yes. They've barely reached their own satellite. But Rex activated another holographic sequence. They'd done something none of us have done in 10,000 years. They've mastered warfare. The images that followed shocked the council into silence. Humans fighting against their world, against each other, always adapting, always surviving. Their history was written in conflict, yet they emerged not as mindless destroyers, but as creators who built art and music alongside weapons, who fought fiercely but also showed mercy, who divided themselves yet united against common threats. The crystals adapt to our weapons because our weapons are predictable, Rix explained. We fight with logic, with patterns the crystals can analyze and counter. But humans are chaos incarnate. They don't just survive on their death world. They conquest it. They turn disadvantages into advantages. They think in ways that defy our comprehension. High Chancellor Vexra's scales shifted through several colors as she processed this information. The Concordat had always avoided violent species, seeing them as too dangerous to join galactic society. But now, you're suggesting we ask these Deathworlders for help? Chlor asked incredulously. These primitives who haven't even unified their own world. I'm suggesting, Rix replied, that we need warriors who understand that survival sometimes requires chaos. The crystals cannot adapt to what they cannot predict. And humans are anything but predictable. Vexra raised her hand for silence, her scales finally settling on a deep purple of decision. The crystals give us no choice. We either find new ways to fight, or we watch our civilization die. Send the call to Earth, all of it. Show them what we face, what's at stake. And pray to the void that these Deathworlders are as remarkable as Commander Rix believes. As the council chamber erupted into activity, no one noticed Rix's mandibles clicking in what passed for a smile among her kind. She had observed humans longer than she'd admitted. She knew what was coming. The galaxy was about to learn why evolution on a death world created not just survivors, but conquerors. And the crystals. The crystals were about to learn why humans called themselves the apex predator of their world. General Sarah Chen stood motionless before the United Earth Defense Council, her weathered face illuminated by the holographic message playing for the 20th time. The alien transmission had arrived 6 hours ago, breaking through every encryption and appearing simultaneously on military channels worldwide. Now, in a hastily convened session deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, humanity's leaders gathered to decide the fate of not just Earth, but apparently the entire galaxy. Play the casualty projections again, Chen ordered, her voice steady despite having barely slept since the message arrived. The hologram shifted, showing crystal formations consuming entire planets, the death toll climbing into the trillions. She'd spent 30 years preparing Earth's defenses against potential alien threats. Now those same aliens were begging for help, and the irony wasn't lost on her. It could be a trap, Admiral Rodriguez pointed out from his position at the circular table. Show us advanced technology. Play on our sympathies, then strike when we let our guard down. A chorus of agreeing murmurs. Agreed, Chen nodded, but we also need to move fast. Every day we delay, more worlds die, more refugees flee, more knowledge and culture is lost forever. The council president stood, her voice formal. Then let us vote. Do we answer this call for help? Do we step onto the galactic stage, not as conquerors or victims, but as protectors? The vote was unanimous. Within hours, humanity's response was being transmitted across the stars. But it wasn't just military forces being mobilized. Along with soldiers went scientists, engineers, doctors, and diplomats. If humanity was joining the galactic community, they would show all sides of their nature. In her office, Chen watched the first ships being loaded. The alien message had called humans Deathworlders, a term meant to inspire fear. But they would learn. They would learn that surviving on a world that tried to kill you every day didn't just make you strong. It made you understand the value of helping others survive too. As she drafted the final orders, Chen allowed herself a small smile. The galaxy thought they were getting warriors. They would get those, yes. But they would also get something they didn't expect. They would get humanity in all its chaotic, creative, compassionate glory. And the crystals. The crystals were about to learn why Earth's history was full of impossible victories. Because humans didn't just survive against the odds. They thrived on them. The first wave of ships would launch within 24 hours. Operation Stellar Shield was about to begin. And with it, humanity's first steps into a larger universe. Not as conquerors, not as servants, but as equals, as protectors. The Deathworlders were coming, and they were bringing hope with them. The Concordat's premier military facility, Starbase Aegis, had never seen anything quite like the human vessels now docked alongside its pristine hulls. Where Concordat ships were smooth and elegant, the human warships were angular, brutalist, and covered in what looked like excessive armor plating. To High Commander Vexra, they resembled nothing so much as the prehistoric predators that once stalked her homeworld. General Chen stood beside her at the observation deck, both leaders watching as human crews worked alongside alien engineers to integrate Concordat shield technology with Earth's warships. The scene below was organized chaos, exactly what Chen had come to expect when humans were involved. "Your engineers seem concerned," Chen observed, noting how the alien technicians kept backing away from the human ship's weapon systems. Vexra's scales rippled with embarrassment. "We haven't built dedicated warfare vessels in 8,000 years. Your ships, the sheer amount of redundancy in your systems." "Redundancy keeps us alive," Chen replied simply. "On Earth, we learned that anything that can fail will fail, usually at the worst possible moment." A commotion from below drew their attention. A human engineer was arguing with a Concordat scientist, their voices carrying through the deck's audio pickups. "But it's inefficient," the Concordat scientist was saying. "Your targeting computers are primitive compared to ours. Why won't you let us replace them?" "Because computers can be hacked," the human replied patiently. "That's why we keep manual backups for everything. Sometimes the old ways are the best ways." Vexra's scales shifted to a deep blue of confusion. "Your species deliberately maintains obsolete systems, even after being offered superior technology." Chen smiled. "We maintain what works, and sometimes, especially against an adaptive enemy, simpler is better. The crystals can't hack a mechanical firing solution." Before Vexra could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. Scout Commander Rix's voice came over the command channel. "Crystal swarm detected in the Proxima sector. 3 colony worlds at risk. Time to impact: 6 hours." The scene below erupted into activity. Human crews sprinted to their ships while Concordat personnel moved with precise, practiced efficiency. Chen turned to Vexra, her expression now serious. "Time to test our combined capabilities. My ships will take point." "But our vessels have superior shields," Vexra protested. "They should lead the—" "Your shields are predictable," Chen cut in. "The crystals adapt to patterns, remember. We need to show them something they've never seen before." What followed was humanity's first real battle among the stars, and it would change galactic military doctrine forever. The crystal swarm emerged from hyperspace exactly where predicted, a vast cloud of crystalline structures that moved with horrifying intelligence. They encountered the Concordat defense fleet arranged in mathematically perfect formations. And behind them, hidden in the sensor shadow of a nearby moon, waited the human ships. "All vessels, execute Operation Chaos Protocol," Chen's voice carried across the command channel. What followed made even the veteran Concordat commanders stare in disbelief. The human ships attacked in what appeared to be complete disorder. They flew patterns that any proper tactical computer would declare suicidal. They launched salvos of primitive nuclear weapons, not at the crystal swarm, but into seemingly empty space around it. "Now," Chen ordered. The Concordat ships activated their quantum weaponry, expecting it to be absorbed as usual. But this time, the nuclear detonations had created a web of radiation and electromagnetic interference that the crystals couldn't adapt to fast enough. When the quantum beams hit, they actually worked. For the first time in the war, the crystal swarm retreated. Hours later, in the after-action briefing, Vexra struggled to understand what she had witnessed. "Your tactics, they defied all strategic logic. Our combat computers couldn't even predict your movement patterns." "That was the point," Chen explained, bringing up the battle footage. "Your computers couldn't predict us, which means neither could the crystals. Sometimes the best pattern is no pattern at all. But the risks, Rix interjected from her position in the corner. The margin for error in those maneuvers was astronomical. Chen agreed. We lost 3 ships executing those turns, but we saved 3 worlds. And more importantly, we proved the crystals can be hurt. They just need to be surprised first. The alien leaders exchanged glances. Everything about human warfare seemed to go against their most basic military principles. Yet it had worked. There's an old saying on Earth, Chen continued, seeing their confusion. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. But we'd like to add something to that. The friends who fight beside you become family. She brought up new tactical displays. Now let's talk about how we can combine your technology with our chaos. Because the next battle, the crystals won't fall for the same tricks twice. We need to get creative. As the planning session began, Vexra realized something that both thrilled and terrified her. The humans weren't just bringing their warfare expertise to this fight. They were bringing their entire philosophy, their ability to think in ways that defied conventional logic, their willingness to take calculated risks, and most surprisingly, their capacity to build bonds of trust even across the gulf of species. The crystals had adapted to 10,000 years of concordat warfare, but they had never faced anything like humanity's organized chaos, and that might just save the galaxy. The emergency ward of Starbase Aegis was never meant to handle this many casualties. General Chen moved through the chaos, her uniform still covered in debris from the battle, watching as human medics worked alongside concordat healers to save lives from a dozen different species. The crystals had adapted again, faster than anyone had predicted. Final casualty report, sir, her aide said quietly, holding out a datapad. Chen took it without breaking stride, her face hardening as she read the numbers. 8 concordat capital ships lost, 15 human vessels destroyed, thousands dead or missing. And worst of all, the crystal swarm had taken the Arcturus gateway, cutting off an entire sector of the galaxy from aid. In the command center, she found High Commander Vexra and Scout Commander Rix already waiting. The holographic display showed the crystal swarm's new configuration, no longer just geometric shapes, but now incorporating twisted versions of both concordat and human ship designs. They're learning from our destroyed vessels, Rix explained, her mandibles clicking in agitation. Not just our tactics, but our actual technology. They're evolving. Show me the Arcturus battle footage again, Chen ordered. The hologram shifted, replaying the devastating engagement. She watched as the crystals absorbed their attacks, adapted to their chaos patterns, and then turned their own strategies against them. What had worked in previous battles became suddenly, horrifically ineffective. We need something new, Vexra said, her scales a muted gray of despair. But our scientists are out of ideas, and your chaos tactics won't work twice against the same formation. Chen finished. She stood silent for a long moment, studying the tactical display. Then, slowly, a gleam appeared in her eyes that made both alien commanders nervous. What if we stopped trying to destroy them? She asked suddenly. Explain, Rix demanded, all 4 of her eyes focusing intently. Chen manipulated the hologram, highlighting the crystal swarm's structure. We've been thinking about this wrong. We see them adapting to our weapons, our tactics, our technology. But what if that adaptation itself is the key? She brought up new data, detailed scans of crystal fragments recovered from previous battles. Look at their learning pattern. They don't just copy our technology. They try to improve it, make it more efficient, more perfect. This is known, Vexra said. It is why they are so difficult to defeat. They take our strengths and turn them against us. Exactly. Chen's smile grew sharper. But what if we gave them something they couldn't perfect? Something that would corrupt them from within? Understanding dawned in Rix's alien features. You want to feed them bad data, flawed designs. Better, Chen replied. I want to feed them humanity's greatest military failures. Every crashed prototype, Every failed experiment, every design that looked good on paper but catastrophically malfunctioned in practice. We have centuries of documented disasters to work with, but they would detect such obvious flaws, Vexra protested. Their analysis capabilities are based on seeking perfection, Chen cut in. They see our successful designs and make them better. But what happens when we show them things that look advanced, seem perfect on the surface, but contain fundamental, catastrophic flaws that only appear when fully integrated? She brought up Earth's military archives, displaying countless failed experiments and prototypes. Humanity's history is full of brilliant ideas that didn't work, designs that seemed revolutionary until they literally blew up in our faces. The crystals drive to perfect everything they absorb. What if we could use that against them? A virus, Rix breathed, her scientific mind racing ahead. Not a computer virus, but a virus of ideas. Bad ideas that look good. Exactly. We show them flawed FTL drive designs that tear ships apart at the quantum level. Power systems that achieve incredible efficiency right before they catastrophically fail. Weapon designs that backfire spectacularly. Chen's eyes gleamed. And we package it all in the most appetizing way possible. This is madness, Vexra said, but her scales had shifted to a color of cautious hope. To deliberately feed them failures is exactly what they won't expect, Chen finished. They've adapted to our successes. They've learned to counter our best weapons and tactics. But our failures, our beautiful, catastrophic failures, those they haven't seen yet. She turned to face her alien allies. We'll need everything, every failed experiment, every disaster, every brilliant idea that went horribly wrong. And we'll need your scientists to help weaponize them, make them irresistible to the crystal's drive for perfection. Operation Trojan. Rix named it, referring to the human historical reference she'd studied. We give them a gift they cannot resist. Chen nodded. And when they try to perfect the imperfectible. The plan was insane. It violated every principle of conventional warfare. It required deliberately sharing humanity's greatest military embarrassments with an enemy that had proven devastatingly effective at turning strengths against them. It was, in other words, perfectly human. As the command center erupted into activity, Shan allowed herself a grim smile. The crystals had adapted to humanity's strengths. Now they would learn why even humanity's failures were dangerous. The galaxy was about to witness the deadliest gift humanity had ever given, the present of imperfection. The combined fleet of human and Concordat vessels hung in the darkness of space, waiting. General Chen stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Prometheus, watching the tactical display with focused intensity. Next to her, High Commander Vexra's scales shifted through anxious colors, while Scout Commander Rix remained unnaturally still in the shadows. They had spent 2 weeks preparing Operation Trojan, 2 weeks of loading their bait ships with humanity's most spectacular failures, revolutionary propulsion systems that achieved incredible power just before tearing themselves apart, theoretical weapon designs that looked flawless until the moment of catastrophic backfire, and experimental shield configurations that promised invulnerability while hiding fatal resonance flaws. Crystal swarm emerging from hyperspace, the sensor officer announced. They've taken the bait. They're moving to engage the decoy fleet. The massive crystal formation appeared exactly where predicted, drawn by the tempting target of apparently abandoned ships broadcasting their technical specifications for anyone to analyze. Ships that seemed to represent the pinnacle of both human and Concordat technology merged together. Look how eagerly they're absorbing the data, Rix observed, her mandibles clicking in what Chen had learned was amusement, like children grabbing at candy. Children about to learn a very hard lesson, Chen replied. She watched as the crystal swarm began to change, incorporating the new designs into their structure. Their formation shifted, becoming more complex, more perfect, and more unstable. Energy readings are spiking, the science officer reported. The crystals are attempting to optimize the absorbed technologies. They're trying to improve them. Improve the unimprovable, Vexra murmured, her scales now showing a color Chen had never seen before. They cannot see the fundamental flaws because they're too focused on seeking perfection. The crystal swarm's transformation accelerated. They were reconstructing themselves according to the new patterns, eager to incorporate what they saw as superior technology. Sections of their formation began to glow with impossible energy readings as they implemented the flawed drive systems. Their defensive matrices realigned to match the sabotaged shield configurations. All ships, hold position. Chen ordered as several captains began requesting permission to attack. Let them take it all. Let them try to perfect it. The minutes stretched like hours as they watched the crystal swarm complete its transformation. The once geometric formation had become a twisted mirror of human and concordat technology, a sight that would have been beautiful if it wasn't so deadly. Then it happened. The first cascade failure began in a section of the swarm that had incorporated a particularly elegant but fundamentally flawed power distribution system. The energy surge triggered a chain reaction in the adjacent segments, which had adopted an experimental shield configuration that looked brilliant on paper but contained a devastating resonance flaw. They're trying to adapt, Rix reported, watching the readings. But the flaws, they're too fundamental, too interlinked. Each attempt to fix one problem is triggering two more. The crystal swarm's perfect formation began to break apart as countless technological failures compounded upon each other. Experimental drive systems tore holes in spacetime. Theoretical weapon designs backfired catastrophically. Shield harmonics collapsed into devastating feedback loops. All ships, execute final phase, Chen ordered. The combined fleet moved forward, their weapons targeting the increasingly chaotic crystal formation. But this time, they weren't firing to destroy. They were firing to accelerate the cascade of failures already consuming the swarm from within. The battle, if it could even be called that, lasted less than an hour. In the end, the mighty crystal swarm that had terrorized the galaxy lay in ruins, destroyed not by superior firepower or perfect technology, but by its own drive for perfection. In the aftermath, as rescue ships moved to secure the sector, Chen found herself back in the command center with Vexra and Rix. The holographic display showed the extent of their victory, not just here, but across the galaxy as other crystal swarms fell to the same trap. I still cannot quite believe it worked, Vexra admitted, her scales now showing a complex pattern that Chen recognized as joy mixed with bewilderment. We defeated them with failures. Not just failures, Chen corrected. We defeated them with the wisdom that comes from failing. From knowing that perfection isn't just impossible, it's dangerous. Your species, Rick said thoughtfully, continues to surprise us. When we first discovered you, we thought you were simply warriors. Then we learned you were innovators. But now, she gestured to the display. Now we understand that your greatest strength is your ability to learn from imperfection itself. Chen smiled. On Earth, we have a saying, perfect is the enemy of good. We learned that lesson the hard way, through countless failures and disasters. But each failure taught us something valuable. And now those lessons have saved the galaxy, Vexra concluded. Her scales shifted to a formal diplomatic pattern. The Concordat owes humanity a debt we can never fully repay. You will, of course, be offered full membership in our alliance. About that, Chen's smile turned diplomatic. We have some suggestions for reforms, starting with your military doctrine and your educational systems, and quite a few other things, actually. Both alien leaders stared at her for a moment before Rix broke into what could only be described as laughter. Of course you do. The Deathworlders aren't content with just saving us. You want to teach us how to save ourselves. That's what family does, Chen replied simply. And didn't I tell you at the beginning? The friends who fight beside you become family. As the three leaders began discussing the future of their new alliance, the stars seemed to shine a little brighter. The galaxy had been saved not by perfection, but by the beautiful chaos of human ingenuity. The Deathworlders had proved that sometimes the most powerful force in the universe isn't strength or technology or even wisdom. Sometimes, the most powerful force is the ability to learn from your mistakes, to embrace imperfection, and to turn your greatest failures into your greatest strengths. The perfect ending, as any human could tell you, is never really the end at all. It's just the beginning of something new, something unexpected, something wonderfully imperfect. And that's exactly how it should be.